of Financial Aid for the Miami Dade College Wolfson campus. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to share with you some information I think will be beneficial to you as you pursue your educational goals. Before we start the presentation, I should also share with you that if you have any questions at any point during the presentation, please do ask, and we'll be delighted to go ahead and answer your questions. What is the primary goal of financial aid? What is financial aid intended to do? What is financial aid? It is a source of monetary support that comes in the form of scholarships, grants, loans, employment opportunities. Yes, it is possible for you to get employment opportunities through financial aid. Where does financial aid come from? Primarily it comes from the federal government, comes from the state, comes from the institution you are attending, and also any organization you come in contact with. For example, your church could be a source of financial aid. The organization you work for could be a source of financial aid. The organizations you do your groceries at could be a source of financial aid. So any organization or any entity you come in contact with is a potential source of financial aid. Now, financial aid can be classified into two groups or two types. You have those that are called gift aid, which means they're given to you, or you don't need to pay them back, or you don't have to work for them. And the gift types aid are the grants and the scholarships. Grants are primarily need-based. That's why when you fill out the FAFSA, which is the application for financial aid, they ask you information about yourself and your parents, financial information about yourself and your parents. Whereas scholarships are primarily merit-based, meaning you could be exceptionally gifted at something, and that could be a reason for why you're receiving a scholarship. If you're a good student, that's also a reason. So scholarships are primarily merit-based, and grants are primarily based on need. And then you have the self-help types of financial aid, which are loans and employment. The loans you have to pay back, and the employment opportunities mean you have to work to earn that kind of financial aid. So again, to go back, we have four different types of financial aid which can be grouped into two categories. The four are grants, scholarships, loans, and employment opportunities. The gift types aid are grants and scholarships because you don't need to pay them back or work for them. And the self-help types of financial aids are loans and employment opportunities. What do you have to do to give yourself an opportunity at receiving consideration for financial aid in any of the forms it may come from? The form that is the most important you will have to fill out is what we call the FAFSA. It's the free application for federal student aid. And this form is made available every year as early as January 1st. There are two ways you can complete that form. You can do it electronically, or you can complete a paper application. To file it electronically, you have to go to www.fafsa.ed.gov. And if you will be doing it electronically, you have to have the means to be able to sign it electronically as well. And at the same site that you go to complete the form, you will have the access to the site where you fill out, you can request a PIN, and it takes about 5 minutes, by the way, to apply for a PIN. What is the PIN? The PIN is a number that's assigned to you that identifies you as yourself in the eyes of the federal government. That's your electronic signature. And the PIN that you will create, it's true for the FAFSA. You will have to do a FAFSA every year that you plan to be in school, but for the PIN, it's a one-time deal. The PIN that you will apply for and receive now is the PIN that you will use next year, the year after, and the year after, every single time that you complete a FAFSA. Okay? And if you're a student who needs to provide the parents' information, you also need to apply for a PIN for the parent that's going to be, or the parents that will be signing the FAFSA for you. And the parent, if you have siblings, the PIN that you will create for that parent is the same PIN that parent will use for each and every sibling. For you, your brothers, your sisters, each one of you that needs to complete a FAFSA, if there is one parent, the parent will use that same PIN for each kid, and it will again be the same PIN that the parent uses every year and for every child. Okay, so again, the PIN is a number that identifies you or the parent as yourselves when you complete the FAFSA, and allows you to complete the FAFSA completely electronically without having to do any paper having to submit any paper document to the Department of Education. You will also have the option to complete the paper application. Now, you will find out in just a little bit the differences between having to do the form electronically or completing a paper application and submitting it. There are many more benefits to doing it electronically as opposed to doing a paper application, and you will find out later. And it is recommended that even if you don't think you will be eligible for financial aid, that you complete a FAFSA. Always complete a FAFSA if you think you will be in school, even if you don't think you will be eligible for financial aid. As you will find out, there are different types of financial aid from different sources, and you may not be eligible for one but may be eligible for another. So still complete the FAFSA to give yourself an opportunity to receive consideration for all the different types of financial aid you could be eligible for. Now, I just mentioned if you're going to do the form electronically, it is recommended that you apply for a PIN, but if you don't have a PIN, can you still fill the form out electronically? And the answer is yes. The only thing is that instead of you completing the process completely electronically, you will have, when you get to the end of the application, when they ask you how do you want to sign the form, you will have to say that you want to print a signature page. And that signature page, you will have to sign it. If you don't have a PIN, to sign it electronically, or if your parent does not have a PIN, to sign it electronically, and mail in that form. The signature page will have the address where that form goes. And until the Department of Education receives that signature page, they will not process your application. So to avoid having to mail anything in, apply for a PIN for yourself, and if you are having to use your parent's information, apply for a PIN for your parent. Have your parent to apply for a PIN as well. Okay? Now, if you will be doing the form electronically, you have to be cautious as well, because as I am going to high schools and doing workshops, I'm finding out that some folks are getting charged because they're going to, instead of going to www.fafsa.ed.gov, they go to fafsa.com. The fafsa.com is an organization that does not have anything to do with the federal government, and they do charge you to help you fill out the FAFSA. Now, like the name of the form says, it's a free application for federal student aid. You should really have to pay anyone to complete the FAFSA, so be careful. When you start completing the process, if any organization is asking you for money to help you, move away from them. Contact the institution you are attending so they can help you with the FAFSA. Most institutions do have workshops where they help you complete the FAFSA, and it's free of charge. What are some of the things you need when you are completing the FAFSA? You need to make sure, if you are doing it electronically, that you have a valid social security number. You need to have the prior year income information, and the timeline I recommend that you complete that process every year is from January to February to complete the FAFSA. The FAFSA comes out every year in January. So between January and February, make sure the FAFSA is complete. And if you are selected for a process, which we'll get to later, called verification, and have to submit documents to your school for further processing, you need to make sure by March, April, the latest, those documents are turned into the institution you plan to attend. But should you not have your taxes available between January and February, what you may want to do is to use an estimation of your income, and as soon as you get the taxes done, then you can always go back and report the information to the FAFSA. But make sure, again, that the FAFSA is done between January and February. Now, one of the cool things about doing the form electronically as opposed to doing it doing a paper application is one of the cool features that the Department of Education came up with is a process that allows you to link your tax or income information directly from the IRS to your FAFSA. It's called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. When you are completing the form online, this is an option that you will have that will allow your FAFSA, that will allow you to have your information from the IRS populated to your FAFSA directly from the IRS. Okay. Another thing that you will need is the PIN if you are going to do it electronically. And again, it's to sign. The reason you need the PIN is to make sure it is a completely electronic process. As far as the school, some of the things you need to make sure when your FAFSA information is received by the school, it does not present any problem, is one, you must be enrolled and accepted for enrollment in an eligible program at the school you plan to attend. You must declare a major. You need to know what degree you are pursuing or certificate that you are pursuing. Another thing that you need to in terms of when your eligibility is being considered is are you a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen? If you are not sure about whether you are an eligible non-citizen, do not make that decision yourself. Report your information and allow the Department of Education to make that determination. If they don't deem at that point when you submit your FAFSA that your status is that of an eligible non-citizen, they will communicate to the school to collect documents from you and submit that information to the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, for further verification. But do not take it upon yourself to make that determination to say you're eligible, you are not eligible, you're an ineligible non-citizen, and therefore you are not completing the FAFSA. Always check that you're an eligible non-citizen and allow the Department of Education to make that determination, and at the very least allow DHS to tell us this is a valid document or this is not a valid document. Now, another thing that's really important is if you are a male, a man between the ages of 18 and 26, you need to make sure you are registered with the Selective Service. Now, there's a lot of confusion about what the Selective Service is. It's not, once you register with the Selective Service, it does not mean that you are enrolling with the Army or with the Armed Forces. That's not what this is. It's telling the federal government that you are there, and if the need arises, if there's a draft, then you're, and you can always decline the draft later, but by selecting or by not registering with the Selective Service, that would mean that you are not going to be eligible for financial aid and could potentially be disqualified for certain jobs in the future. But again, registering with the Selective Service does not mean that you are going to the Army or going to the military or anything like that. It's just making yourself available if the need for a draft is there. And right, we haven't had a draft in I don't know how long. If you're a returning student, you may not be in default on a federal student loan. You must not owe a repayment on the federal grant or loan funds. And the most important thing is that if you are a returning student, that you are performing well academically. The school that you plan to attend by federal regulations has to have what's called standards of academic progress policy, where they measure your academic performance. And usually a student is required to maintain a minimum standard, whether it's the GPA, minimum GPA would be, if you're on a 4-point scale GPA, your GPA would need to be a 2.0. It depends on how many credits you attempt. Completion rate, you need to complete a certain percentage of the classes you attempt, and there's also a cap, a time frame, and the time frame given to you to complete the degree you are pursuing. And at some institutions, the limit is 120% of the total credits required for the degree you are pursuing, and at some institutions it's 150%. Meaning, if the degree you are pursuing requires 60 credits for you to earn that degree, there would be a cap either at 120% of 60 attempted credits or 150% of 60 attempted, not completed, but attempted credits, which means if you attempt 150% or 120%, depending on the institution, of that total credits required for the degree, and you are not done, then your eligibility would be removed. And if that happens to be the case for any reason, then you will also have the opportunity to appeal to regain eligibility. But the bottom line is, if you are a student, you need to do whatever it takes to make sure you are performing well academically, because that is a component to your eligibility that will impact your eligibility. And you may not have your eligibility suspended or terminated due to being convicted of a drug-related offense, meaning you were convicted of possessing or selling drugs. That could be a reason why your eligibility would be removed or suspended. Now, the financial aid process, I like to say, is a multi-process process. Meaning you don't just do the FAFSA and then everything is done. What happens after you do the FAFSA? Well, the FAFSA is built in such a way that they ask you certain information, and they do check with certain agencies to make sure, one, you are who you are saying you are, and two, that you meet certain, I can say, civic duties. They will check with the Social Security Administration primarily to make sure that the name, the Social Security number, the U.S. citizenship you are reporting match that of those agencies. They will check with the Department of Homeland Security to verify if you're an eligible non-citizen, to make sure that's a status it's eligible. They will check with the Selective Service as well to make sure if you are a male between the ages of 18 and 26, if you had registered. If you register, and if you're of older age, did you register when you were between 18 and 26? They will check with the Department of Justice to match, to see if your eligibility was not suspended because you were convicted of selling or possessing drugs. They will check with also the National Database for, which is called NSLDS, to see if you're in default or in overpayment on Title IV funds. So those are different agencies that they will do preliminary checks with, to make sure, again, you are who you state you are, and that you are meeting certain requirements for eligibility. Now remember, we had talked about there are two ways you could do the FAFSA. One is you can do it electronically, and two, you can do a paper application. What are some of the advantages to doing the FAFSA electronically? One, the time it takes to process your information. If you do it electronically, it takes about 4 to 5 days to process. 4 to 5 days. And I've seen occasions where it's done in fewer days than 4 to 5 days. Now, if you were to do a paper application, guess how long it takes? It takes between 4 to 6 weeks to process. So now, I don't know about you, 4 to 5 days beats 4 to 6 weeks anytime. Another thing about doing the paper application, doing the form electronically as opposed to doing it a paper application, to do a paper version. As you are completing the form electronically, there are certain built-in mechanisms in the application where if you are making an egregious error, it will stop you and tell you to revise that answer because it does not really meet the standards, basically. Let's say, for an example, they ask you how much money did you earn, what was your adjusted gross income. You are putting you earned $4,000, and they ask you how much money did you pay in taxes. You are reporting you paid $4,000 in taxes. It'll tell you that this can't happen, that you earned $4,000 and paid $4,000, to revise that the answer to those questions, because one of them, in one of those, it would be wrong because it can't happen. Whereas if you were to do a paper application, there's no one looking over your shoulder to tell you that this is wrong. Okay. Also, another thing is you can link your information directly from the IRS to your FAFSA if you do it electronically. If you're doing a paper application, you don't have that option. Okay. Now, Once the Department of Education receives your information, what happens is that they will communicate back to you. They will send back to you what's called a Student Aid Report, a SAR. The SAR is again a response to your FAFSA, which will have the information you put on the FAFSA and additional information that will let you and the financial aid department that you're the financial aid department that you're of the institution that you're planning to attend, or you put on the FAFSA of what needs to happen to complete the process for you to receive financial aid. There are two different categories. It could be one that says you are not selected for verification, and in those cases, the process is simple and in terms of what you need to do and easy. It just means that you need to make sure you are fully admitted at the college and that you are in a degree, declare a major, and your transcripts are sent to the college. And you need to make sure your admission process is complete fully, and then your financial aid will automatically process. Now, if you are selected for that process called verification, which the response will tell you, then that means there's additional work that needs to be done, which means you will have to now shift the process from the Department of Education to you and the college you are going to be attending. Okay, but the response will indicate on it if you've been selected for that process or if you've not been selected for that process. And what your responsibility in terms of when you receive that response is to make sure you review the information and to make sure that the information was correctly reported. You review your name, your social security, and things like that, and see if you are selected for verification. Now, the school that you attended will automatically receive a copy of that information as well, and they will own up. They will take ownership to the process and will communicate with you to let you know what, if anything, is missing to get the process complete. There is a question, and the question is, how do I choose my major? Do I have to visit the campus? Well, personally, I would recommend that you meet with if you are unsure about what you want to do, I'd recommend you meet with an academic advisor to help you with that selection process. But in terms of how do you choose a major, I think you have to reflect in terms of what you want to do. And again, I wouldn't suggest it's just a one-person decision. I would suggest you meet with an academic advisor and to help you with that selection process. But that is a good question, because that could be something that actually keep your financial aid from processing. If you don't have a declared major, then your financial aid will not be processed. So that's really important, and thank you for that question. Okay, again, when the FAFSA information is, when the student aid report is sent to you, the school will, or the schools that you put on the FAFSA will also get a copy of that information. And once they get a copy of that information, they will in turn communicate to you what needs to happen, what, again, and if any documents are needed to complete the process of awarding you financial aid. And remember, I said there are two categories that a student can fall once they complete the FAFSA, one that says they are selected for verification and one that says that they're not selected for verification. If you are selected for verification, what is that process? That process is really confirming that the information you put on the FAFSA is accurate for you and your parents. And the application, that's a random process. The federal government, when you complete your FAFSA, and it goes, they randomly select a few folks and ask those individuals to provide documentation to the institution, so the institution can verify that the information they put on the FAFSA is accurate. And some of the common documents, not restricted to only those two, but most definitely those two will be part of it, are the IRS tax transcript and what we call a verification worksheet. Those are two common documents that they will be asking when you are selected for that process called verification. And again, there's not one thing that automatically put you in the verification pile or not. It's just they randomly select folks for that process. There is another question that says, do I need to make an appointment with my academic advisor? Where can I find an academic advisor? It depends on the institution. Here I work for the Wolfson campus, Miami Dade College. Our academic advisement, if you're a Miami Dade College student, is room 3117, and their telephone number, I will tell you in just a little bit, is 305-237-3077. And yes, you can make an appointment by calling and telling them that you would like to have an appointment with an academic advisor. Again, the number is 305-237-7087. 305-237-7087. Now, I'd like to do a quick recap on the process and make some strong suggestions in terms of what you can do to make the process easier on yourself. Establish a timeline and make it every year. From January to April, from January to February, complete the FAFSA. Even if you don't have your tax information available at the time you are completing it, you can always go back and adjust it. And from March to April, the latest, if you are selected for that process called verification and have to submit documents to your school, by April, the latest, you need to make sure you submit those documents. What do you do? What are you doing when you make sure you follow that timeline? Now, remember I said at the beginning there are different types of financial aid. You have grants, you have scholarships, you have loans, you have work opportunities. Now, there are different types of grants. Within each of the different types of financial aids we just mentioned, there are different programs. There are different grant programs, there are different scholarships, there are different loan programs, and there are different student employment opportunities. Okay? Now, you are not going to be in a position where you are qualified for all of them. So in order to give yourself an opportunity to receive consideration for all that you could be eligible for, should you not be eligible for the most basic ones, is to make sure you do it early, because what happens is that there are certain types of financial aids which you are entitled to, and the timing of when you complete the process is not so important. But there are also other types of financial aids which are not entitlements, and basically what that means is you can meet the eligibility requirements and still not get it because there are no funds available by the time you complete the process. So for someone who is not eligible for an entitlement type program, it is very important that you complete the process early, just in case. So if you are not eligible for any entitlement, you are giving yourself an opportunity to receive consideration for other types of financial aid you could be eligible for. So again, the timeline, and very important, is from January to February, complete the FAFSA. March to April, complete the verification process if you are selected for verification. Another concept that's very important and will help you through the whole process as well is to know that the concept of an academic year. Now, the fiscal year begins in January and it goes all the way through to December. The academic year in most traditional institutions begin in the fall semester, which is the semester that begins in August and goes all the way through to December. It's followed by the spring semester, which is from January to April, and it ends in the summer. So an academic year has 3 semesters in it. It begins in the fall, August to December, followed by spring or winter, depending on the institution, January to April, and it ends in the summer. Summer is from May to July. There's another question. The question is, when is the deadline for fall registration? For Miami Dade College, the deadline is prior to the first day of classes. If you will be applying or will be attending Miami Dade College in the fall semester, you have to make sure you do your registration. But the problem is, by waiting until the deadline, you are risking not being able to find the classes that you want, as opposed to what only is left, and there may not be any of the classes you need or want at that time. So deadline is not something I really recommend at all. I do thank you for your time, thank you for your participation, and I wish you the best of luck as you pursue your educational goals. Thank you.